It was January 1964 in Johnson City, South Carolina, one of the most exciting basketball games of the winter, the All-City Tournament. The championship game was between the schools of Curry and Delaney. I played for Curry, and Delaney was the largest black school in Johnson City. We were up by 4, then 6, and just kept adding more and more onto the scoreboard. And that's when our coach knew we had done it. We'd won our first ever All-City tournament. After talking to Coach, most of the fans and students of both schools had left. While we were walking out, a man walked up to us, and he introduced himself to be Leonardo Chase. He said that he had played for state before, and he invited me over to his house to talk about my future. We talked about how I could possibly skip my senior year of high school and go straight to college. The only problem, though, was that I would have to be in an all-white school. For me, that would be hard because I'm black. And in this era, we were during segregation. He said, run it by your parents and tell me again. Tell me your answer. I ran it by Mama and Papa, and they were just confused about the answer. Mama, she wasn't really ready for it and thought it wasn't the right time. And Papa, he thought that it was a great opportunity. Later it had been quite a casual day until I hear my mama scream to Papa that we need to get in the truck and go over to Skeeter's because he has been bit by a snake. A snake, I tell you. What can that man get himself into now? When we were on our way over to his house, we had talked about where we were going to take Skeeter, which hospital. We decided to take him to Mercy, which was one of the only white hospitals around the town. Skeeter was white and we were black, so we'd just have to sit outside. When we picked him up, I asked him what had happened. In his shaky and painful voice, he had said that he heard something while he was shooting hoops in his yard, that he had heard something rattling by his backyard fence. When he got a shotgun, he went out there to go get it, and it was too fast for him to shoot it, and it had bit him in the leg. When we got to the hospital, a man in all white had met us at the door with a gurney and took Skeeter in. That was a great time for Papa and I to bond. We had talked more about the college idea and for me to go to college, and Papa said he was still a little nervous about it. He also had mentioned that Reverend McNinn was at the basketball tournament today. He wanted our family to participate in a march with Dr. Martin Luther King's son. I thought it was a great idea because it showed freedom, and it was great to be showing our beliefs. It was hard to live in this time of segregation because we were on the bottom half and everyone didn't like us. Finally, we were able to see Skeeter again, and it was a big relief because that was the time I knew he was all right. I had talked to Reverend the next day, and he had said that the Ku Klux Klan had planned a demonstration the same day of the march. So we had also had to move the time. He had called up the sheriff, and the sheriff told us we must just call off the march because we had no rights to mess with the Ku Klux Klan. A few days later, Jenny Epps stopped by our house. She had delivered the news that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't going to be able to attend the march. Skeeter had just gotten out of the hospital that day. At around 10, a few days later, we had started the march, and a fight had erupted during the midst of the march. Skeeter had gotten into a fight and ended up being all bruised up after the chaos. Once again, he was beaten up and had to go back to the hospital. Since the march occurred, Sheriff Moser had ordered a press conference the next day. He had stated that demonstrations could not be held in Johnson City in order of the police. He stood up and started walking towards walking towards the sheriff, and he pulled out his gun. I had chains in my hand, and I was really nervous because he thought I had a gun. I did not have a gun, and so he stuck it really fast back into his holder. I showed him this simple action by chaining myself to him that could be simply illegal now. After I had gotten the release around about 9, Reverend said that I had a good move on my part, and we had all said a prayer at our church. Papa said Mr. Chase called and I was not allowed to have the scholarship anymore because of my illegal demonstration. It was a very tough time for me because I had worked so hard to be eligible for this opportunity.